Jimi Wanjigi is our guest for the next hour. Good morning, Jimmy.
Good morning, Eric.
How you doing?
Glad to be back here.
Karibu tena.
I can see you've decided today Du is not supposed to be next to me. I don't know why you've done that. And you're even predicting that she will not be here the next few weeks.
What have you done?
You should have told me that she was not going to be here. Labda singefika.
Dennis is going to be here.
Mtu anaitwa Dennis.
You're in safe hands.
Dennis is going to be here the next few weeks. Even when Du comes back tomorrow.
And CT, good to see you again.
Good to see you, Jimmy.
Yeah. So now we've been waiting for you because we need to understand a couple of things. The next one is the proverb.
Oh, we're still at it.
Yes, Jimmy, we are still at it. And we are at it this week from the kingdom of Lesotho. People, they don't...
Kingdom of Lesotho?
It is kingdom. They have king.
Has Dennis mastered this yet?
Don't worry, let's give him time. Jimmy, surely you must have come across this term in this country. It's a term we use very often. Give them time.
Oh, they are not currently made.
No, give them time. Yes. Well, time must be given for these things to sort of like do the thing they're supposed to do.
Yes.
Now, cattle are born with ears, horns grow later. Yes.
Cattle are born with ears.
Yes. Yeah.
And horns
grow later. Yes. Some of Eric's friends I know would have mixed this rather nicely. They would have said cattle are born with ears and horns grow later. But it is ears and then horns. Must get Eric.
Ears
and horns.
And horns.
Cattle are born with ears.
Ears. The horns grow later.
Right.
Yes.
Did Eric just say ons instead of horns? He can't pronounce the H.
He can. It's he and I. He has his problem with L's and R's once in a long while.
And Jimmy was
there's a city in DRC that gives me problems. I start with the key, then the
capital of the
capital
DRC
becomes a problem. So I just normally say capital of DRC.
DRC.
So listen here before you fight, before you grow arrogant.
So it's a combo. You've explained and then given meaning and extended it
completely like that.
Thank you very much, sir.
You're not to share.
Yes, no, it's good.
Dennis ameshika hiyo.
It's good. Give me time.
So as sure as horns will grow on the cattle,
yes,
it means you'll also become arrogant.
Yes.
Correct. As you grow, as you become bigger, you will become arrogant. Right?
Can you imagine? Destiny.
Yes and no. You don't have to be arrogant.
No, you don't have to be.
In
fact, the more you know,
yes,
the more you listen, the more you learn, the humbler you should become.
In fact, the cattle that I've come across that seem to be combative don't usually have very serious horns. The cattle that have really serious horns that you notice a mile away are not known to be combative or crazy. Yes, it's like the other ones are trying to make up for something they don't have. Yes, so truth is...
make up for something they don't have.
We're coming to the end of the year.
No, I'm actually analyzing because every time you look at, say, some of these Ankole cattle and their horns, and you find many of them, they're just peacefully grazing and just going about their business. And even a child can actually look after them. Literally, a child can look after them peacefully. Then you find these native cows that are just slightly bigger than goats. Man, they are combative. Yes. I say this because I know of the cows that I've just mentioned, the smaller ones. And I've seen, you want to like, this guy.
What's going on? Jimmy, 2024 is coming to an end.
Yes,
right?
it is.
It's the 9th of December. We have seen many things happening in the country. Politically, economically, there's a lot that's going on. We've seen sensitization of our citizenry and, the engagement of the citizens, the engagement in governance by the people. How would you sum it up? From your observation, what 2024 has been like so far?
Let me put it in a nutshell. The compass on Kenyan life and Kenyan politics completely changed with the economic revolution and the riots and the demonstrations done by Gen Z June this year, the pendulum has completely shifted. Completely shifted. And if anybody wants to ignore it, they ignore it at their own peril. Kenyan politics, Kenyan life has been redefined this year, and it is primarily because of the economic revolution. And on that score, I would like to not forget our heroes, because 60 people died. 60 people, CT, were killed by what Kenya National Human Rights Commission says, aggression of the police. And it's important to understand these were young Kenyans, young heroes. I'm going to mention 10 today, and every time I appear, I'm going to keep mentioning those 10. Another 10, until we reach 60. Because we cannot forget them. Brian Lemayen Kasain of Narok. Austin Makoha Onyasi of Nakuru. Mike Kihunga Nyaguthi of Nakuru. Kelvin Madanga of Nakuru. Kennedy Onyango of Rongai. Anthony Kamau of Rongai. Rex Kanyika Masai. Matthew Joroge. These were both city mortuary found. Kevin Mawasi, city mortuary. Beasley Kogi, city mortuary. David Chege, city mortuary. Those are 11. These are names we cannot forget. They died for the economic revolution that Kenyans are seeking. The revolution is on. It is still on. It has not ended and will not end. The one thing that is very clear with the three famous words that Kenyans have clouted this year is Ruto must go. Those words are etched in everybody's mind. Ruto must go.
When you say things changed, what are they now? How would you define what is clearly a difference between December 2024 and December 2023?
Right now, there is more hope in bringing down a regime. I remember when I talked here late last year, there was a follow-up of a discussion I think I had in Mombasa, where it said the economic pains of this country are going to cause a revolt in Kenya. I talked it, in fact, in January and February of this year. And many people were asking me, how is it going to happen? Are you sure it's going to happen? I said, there's no doubt about it. Kenyans are a people who always rise up to the occasion. And it doesn't need to be instigated by anybody. It will come from their hearts. It will come from their minds. It will come from their spirit. We are a country of firsts. And I kept trying to remind people that even when we had been dominated by the colonial regime of the British, CT, if you didn't know, the British had an empire. They had conquered 500 million people. The only place they found a revolt for land and freedom was in Kenya, where we stood up an armed revolt against them. Kenya is that. Our people, our spirit is that. So things have changed. Today, what you call mene tekel has happened. Nobody cares what a parliamentarian speaks. They were cancelled. Who cares about them? People will listen to somebody on social media a lot more than somebody in government, either the executive or in parliament, because that represents more their voice than those people that were so-called elected. Today, the president is ashamed to meet people, to face people, cannot face people. You imagine that you have the whole Christian fraternity and the Muslims call a president a liar. His mouth has been taken away. William Samoei Ruto had 4 pillars to his regime. One was the church. The second were the people and parliamentarians. The third, I can assure you, was he had a narrative that he could market to people. He had a narrative. And the fourth The fourth was he had a lady called Meg Whitman, who decided she's going to fly his flag no matter how high. Those 4 pillars have gone. Parliament was cancelled. The people that were so-called with him, right? I can assure you that more than half of the vote that he got is out. His mouth has been taken away. His tongue taken away. His narrative taken away. He's called a liar. A head of state being called a liar by those who are the vanguards of our ethics called the church. He has nothing more to offer. Nothing more. Kenyans have given up on the man. He is no light. There is no future in this man and his regime. And in fact, every day that we sit back, let us accept there is no hope as long as he's sitting there. None at all. And in fact, the Kenyans have been quiet for 2 months. The Kenyans have been listening to only want one thing. How do we get him out before the term? This is not even about 2027 or Sigei 2027. People are asking, how do we get him out before the term?
Is it William Ruto or is it the current class of political leaders?
William Ruto and whatever he represents.
Well, he doesn't represent opposition politics.
No.
Do you think the people that you've been listening to for the last 2 months, are they happy with the political leadership, whether it's in Kenya Kwanza, in Azimio, or elsewhere?
No. I think Kenyans are fed up of the political class that they see today.
Why?
They believe they do not represent their interests, they represent their own personal interests. The politics of self is what Mwananchi believes is driving our so-called political elite. The politics of self. And unfortunately, they are not wrong. This system, as I argued last time I was here, was embedded over 100 years ago. And this system was embedded by the colonialists, where you created tribal chieftains, divide and rule. And these chieftains meant that if you come to the table, then your tribe is represented. I sit on the table as a Kikuyu, bas, now Kikuyus are eating. But it's just Jimi who is eating. Okay? This is nonsense. I read you a list of the people, some of the people who died during Gen Z. Which one tribe is there? It is everybody. It is every community that has suffered, that is feeling the pain of these chieftains sitting at the table, saying they represent one tribe or another. This is pathetic politics that the Mzungu brought in, that our forefathers, from Jomo Kenyatta to Moi, to Uhuru Kenyatta, and now to William Ruto, represent. He can talk all he wants about he's not a tribalist. But we all see the amount of people he's employing from his community into the civil service.
We left out Kibaki.
Kibaki did not believe in that demagoguery. Kibaki, although he got in on the basis of Wagogo from different areas coming to support him, I do not believe that was his calling. He had a different ethos, an ethos of meritocracy. And he tried to shake that off. He didn't succeed. He didn't, but he tried to shake it off.
He was actually accused of entrenching it. There are those who would argue today that look at Mwai Kibaki, he did the roads, he brought a bit of power, but he entrenched.
It was politics. You know, the politics of 2007 were very dangerous. They were climaxed in 2005, where the push for a referendum brought out saying, yes, the economy is getting better, but it's only one community benefiting. And you branded a 41 against 1 on the basis primarily because of an MOU that was not honored. An MOU that was not fully honored according to what had been agreed. That was the basis. But that MOU did not bring more of Kibaki's tribe to the table. It just brought different players. not the players from one party or another. Like you brought in a Nyang Nyong who was not representative of LDP. He came from SDP. You brought him a different Maasai to Intimama, right? But he didn't really bring in tribes. But it was the politics. And I think if there's anything that we should learn, the 41 against 1 that was created in 2007 must never be rekindled again. It's unfortunate politics. Because at the end of the day, we all want the same thing.
But you see, that is the same thing that some are saying is happening now. There are those who are shouting from the rooftops that anything that is mentioned that appears to be, even in the slightest, against the president is tribal, and that it is because of the community he comes from. And then when you throw in, is it a rallying call? Is it a clarion call that Ruto must go? You see, it's like we've gone and heaped every ill that this country has suffered on one person. And that is not a true representation of the problems that we have. Because if you start by simply saying that governments are a continuum, Moi inherited something from Kenyatta, Kibaki, and so forth, and so forth, and so forth. Can we tease out and say the things that we can point and put at the feet of this person are this and this and this, but everything else? Because to do that is like we're saying, the judiciary doesn't function, the three arms of government don't function. Parliament doesn't function, the judiciary doesn't function, and the sovereign, more than anything else, don't function at all. Because if that is the case, then this one person is responsible for all our problems, and indeed he must go. But that is not the case, is it? I
agree with you entirely, City. And I think if you recall, when I was last here, we talked about a system we inherited at independent Kenya. That was not ours. Remember, we didn't define ourselves as tribes. Somebody came and told us what tribe we belong to. Somebody even called us Nilots and Bantu. Somebody came here and put a system in 1897 with a company called Royal British East India Company. Went on in 1902 to call it Imperial British East Africa Company. And when Kenya became a colony, that company that came to extract and exploit our country and dominate us became the civil service, became the system. Okay, this is reality. How different is it today? It became the civil service. Their watchmen became the policemen. Today, when you go and talk to a policeman at a government office, okay, doesn't he treat you like a watchman? Unataka nini? You are the taxpayer. That is your public office. And he's asking you what you want, because the most important people are the ones who are inside there, not you. Right? That's no different to a watchman. Right? This is what happened. We have never changed this system. Okay? Because it has also worked for those who have so-called inherited power, gotten power. They perpetuated it because it has this thing of the wagogo. Right? But it exploits us. It extracts from us. How different is this government? The one thing William Ruto came in and he said, this is a time for the hustler, not the dynasty. This is a time that he is going to bring the people to the table, not the wagogo.
So Jimmy,
okay,
the real
and what happened? And what happened? Because it was in a sense a revolution of that order, right?
And people resonated with it.
And people believed it. They believed it. They believed it. 2 years down the line, I think let's be sincere. He's been unable to do it.
They're trying to put the smoke in a can, and the smoke is not getting
in there.
It just keeps
It is not. The man is a total failure. Okay? He's a total failure. So, CT, he's a perpetuation of it. In fact, he's entrenching it even more.
You see, my point, Jimmy, was this. He represents something that has been wrong for a very long time. And because of our history, the spotlights are now on him with greater scrutiny than probably any other president this country has received. Now, that is a good thing.
It's a fantastic thing.
Because it means that we are awake.
Yes.
And I credit him with that awakening. This is my point exactly. In the absence of that, his style of ruling, we would not be where we are in terms of our thinking, in terms of our evolution, in terms of how we look at life.
So his failure has been to our success.
But I think I would argue that his failure was primarily our failure, and part of the reason why people are angry is because we see the mistakes we made, and in true Kenyan style, we must find someone to blame for it.
True.
That is my view.
Is it his failure then or his success?
You see, there's the word inadvertent, okay?
That's a good one. True.
It bears very, 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 very good meaning in this particular circumstance. Why do I say that? You know how it is, you look back and you wonder, how did we get here? And certain occurrences that took place and nobody could have foreseen that they would lead to exactly where we are. This is a person with his group, they were going about the business they had set out to do. They had a narrative they had sold. Unfortunately, at a very early age, there was an incongruence between what was being said and what was being done. But the narrative kept continuing. And the schism kept increasing. It got to a point people say, but wait, there's a disconnect here. In fact, this is not even a disconnect. This is a valley, and it's growing. Now, I credit those occurrences to our awakening. And that's why I use the word inadvertent.
We may be in the Sinai moment here.
Okay.
The people of Israel believed what Moses was telling them. Let's move out of here. This is slavery. We work for the house of the Pharaoh. We need to get out. And God has told us we can move to our own land and freedom and milk and honey. And then you go into the wilderness. And not because Moses has done whatever Moses has done. It's because the people have done what the people have done that God decides circle around you for 40 years like this. Right? Who do they turn against? Moses. But you see, they're looking back and seeing, this is the hope that we have. And you embolden, you are actually the embodiment of the hope.
Yes.
And because we are not in Canaan yet,
It's your fault.
it is your fault. The people do not want to accept that it's because of their fault that they are not yet in Canaan. They look at their leader, and there's the reason they are not in Canaan. Maybe it's the same kind of thing that we are saying here. As we say Ruto must go, is the same thing that those guys were saying, Moses must go.
No, Eric.
But we're in the wilderness.
Eric,
we're heading towards Canaan.
Let me cut you there. Because really, to compare Ruto to Moses, I think really is blasphemy.
No, I'm comparing you to...
sincerity,
I'm comparing you to the Israelites. Watch out, Moses.
No.
Moses. You Kenyans.
No. To try and epitomize Ruto to Moses is blasphemy. Honestly.
Is it?
Please, absolutely. Moses did never began on the premise of a lie. Never. His whole path was to lead the people to Canaan. And he walked the path. Even God helped him part the Red Sea. He did. But to you to sit back to equate that to William Samoei Ruto, I think it's very sad.
Then what happened?
No, the analogy here.
All right?
Then what
So
happened?
in Sinai, yes, they went round and round. And I
Yes.
like to look at it this way. Look at it in terms of milestones in our own lives.
Yes.
We have been through our first liberation, which was political. All right? If you take it to modern context, we have been through what you call our political liberation. This is what is giving us this platform under which we feel so free to talk to power, challenge authority. All right? Go and vote, voice our opinions, get out there and demonstrate. Even though we are being shot at, we do so. That period has taken a good part of 50 to 60 years.
Yes.
Both our first liberation, our second liberation. All right? That is the context under which we have been in Sinai. Because we went through our political liberation. We're now going through what you call economic liberation. Our lives, our standards of living. Right? This is now our true journey to Canaan. Because Canaan was about fruit for everybody. Plentiful. Right? Land of plenty. This is where we are going. We're not in Sinai.
And independent.
We are on our path. And this is a joyful path, actually. All right?
Yes.
And what is happening is that those who misled us, right? Those who misled us, that even our political liberation will lead to our economic liberation, are now being forced to fall apart. They're all leaving. Yeah? Fagia water is now in place. All right? It is truly coming. Right? We are tired of this nonsense. Okay? Talk real issues that are about our stomach and our future and our generations to come. Right? Fagia water is in place. And the joy that is coming is phenomenal. Phenomenal. So, Eric.
So we should focus on the journey.
Yes.
Not on Moses.
Not on Moses.
Not on the tablets.
No.
Not on creating our own gods.
The Joshuas are being born every day. Right. I've given you a list of those who have laid their lives for this path. We are not in Sinai.
No.
We are on our journey now.
But
on our journey
we're in
to
Sinai on
Canaan.
our journey. Jimi Wanjigi is our guest this morning. What are you again in Safina? You're a member of Safina.
I'm a member of Safina.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, we keep saying that, reminding everybody that. We're still looking at what happened in 2024 politically, economically in this country. Voices, alternative voices. Jimi Wanjigi has been one of those, and he's our guest. Jimmy, let me tell you, Sarit Center is not far from your office. Everybody knows where your office is, right? And Sarit is not far. Sarit, your city. So Sarit, your city has Africa's first ever light the world giving machines. Have you heard of it?
No.
So this is a machine that looks like, those vending machines. The ones where you go, you buy chocolate, you put a coin, chocolate or soda or, crisps, right? So this particular one is similar, but they are working with the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and others like, other NGOs to say that this is how we are going to give during this festive season. So you go there and the vending machine has, lunch, it has a goat, it has all these things. So you select. And if you select, for example, a goat or chicken or a meal or food or fees or something like that, when you select, it tells you how much it's going to cost. You pay for it. Then that item drops. And whichever NGO is the one that's dealing with that, whether it's meals, whether it's medical support, whether it's goat for Christmas, whether it's clothes, they are going then to take that item to a beneficiary community.
Very nice.
In January. So
On
this
what
is
floor
running.
are they on?
Second floor. Now in Sarit Center is
Yeah.
Sarit, your city, second floor. Just
Very nice.
right.
Very nice.
Yep. So
Noble idea.
one of these days, they can't do anything to you when you're in Sarit your city. So walk to Sarit your city. Okay. Right? So go select one of those things and you support. It's about giving.
Thank you.
Sarit your city, Africa's first ever
That's very
light
good.
the world giving machines. This is happening there. All right, Dennis.
Yes. Now, Jimmy, when we talk about matters to do with where Kenya is 2024, how it has been politically, and you've mentioned Kenyans who died, the Gen Z pretty much, and you say Ruto must go, but we come from a point where Kenyans do not trust any politician right now to change this country. And as we finalize 2024 going to 2025, how do we look at the political space turning out to be in the future?
Thanks, Dennis. Just to revisit this Moses thing, it has really somewhat my head.
Good.
Moses never traveled with thieves and abductors and murderers. So please let us get the right comparisons, Eric. That thing
It's really bugging you.
is really bugging me.
Jimmy, the Gen Zs would tell you to sema ikutoke.
That thing.
But Jim,
Anyway,
I think your point is well made. I will not blame it. I was going to say, with that crowd, and it had all the Israelites who were in Egypt.
There must have been thieves and vagabonds who aligned themselves.
No, those were not his thieves and his abductors. All right? They were not his murderers. They were not. They were not the people that went and killed 60 people. So please.
The point you make is a valid one.
Yeah.
The point you make is a valid one. You see,
Then it's just remind me of a question. There's a question you asked.
Inasumbua,
it's like saying the devil and God. This is a comparison. So, imenitoka sasa.
Yes.
So, Dennis, will you remind me the question?
Kenyans right now do not trust any politician to change this country, whichever way you want to look at it. And as we look at 2024, the way it has been and the push for change and all that, as we wrap it up in the future, how do we look at the political space and how will it play?
I agree in part that Kenyans do not trust politicians. That's why I'm very keen on stressing Fagia Water. But Kenyans are also yearning for leadership. And that leadership will and is emerging. The Joshuas are coming out. And the Joshuas will come out with action, not just mere talk. We are clear this country has a resolution called Ruto must go. The one resolution that is not coming out clearly is when. Because it's now 2 years, maybe 3 months or so, since he got inaugurated. There's probably another 2 years, 10 months, 2 years, 9 months left to the next election. And the anxiety is for change before then. Because one thing he cannot change is the destiny of Kenyans. Every day we are going to wake up in the morning, it's just more and more pain, more and more dysfunctionality. If anybody has a modicum of hope, it will go away and dissipate. Right? So people want action. They want the now moment. What is going to close this now? What is going to bring about this change now? And I want to stress two things. Two very clear things. Action must happen and is going to happen. This pain cannot continue unabated for the next 3 years. And there's two causes of action. There's a third one too, but I won't mention it here today. Two causes of action that we must own, because it's not enough to just say Ruto must go. We must make it happen. The first is that since we are in a revolutionary moment, we must make sure we take hold of this revolutionary moment with action. We are going to soon be proposing, and I'll state it here, what you call a tax revolution. Stop paying tax. Stop feeding this person you want him to go. Stop paying tax. Those revolutions have worked since time immemorial. Stop paying tax. Kata kodi. Axe the tax. Stop feeding this monster that we want to exit our lives. Tax revolutions led to the Great Depression of the US, forced a government to change. Tax revolutions have, even in countries in Africa, changed the course and brought multi-party democracy. In this country alone, we had the hut tax that the British brought. And can you imagine the hut tax? They said we had to pay 1 rupee for every hut we had. We didn't even have any rupees. We were doing barter trade. Okay? We were told we have to pay 1 rupee. So the whole basis was they wanted to get slave labor because they had nyakuad all the land. And we decided that enough was enough. That was one of the biggest catalysts to Mau Mau, if you want to know. Because from hut tax, we went to poll tax. I can give you a myriad of examples. Because what has happened is that there is a social contract between the people and the government. And the social fiscal contract between us and the government of William Samoei Ruto was broken long time ago. This money they are collecting from us is not benefiting us. Eric, I know you are a salaried person. You know, I was telling somebody this the other day, to their shock, and I can tell you they were very shocked. I listed for them the amount of money that they are paying to tax. And they said, oh, no, we pay roughly maybe 30%, 36%, I think they said. And I said, no. The actual taxation, right, for somebody who is earning a salary starts here. Maximum pay as you earn rate is 35%.
Yep.
Then you have NSSF. These are now deductions. Let's call them deductions.
Yep.
You have NSSF. You have affordable at 6%. You have affordable housing, another 1.5%. You have SHA, which is 2.7%. So the total direct taxes are 45.2%. Earnings subjected to indirect taxes. Okay? Then you have indirect taxes of about 24.66%, net effect, and with a net effect of another, if you add that, it's another 30%. So the cumulative, what is showing here as cumulative, indirect tax on consumables, VAT, excise on money transfers, import duties, railway levy, so on and so forth, literally shows that you are paying something like 69% of your earned revenue to taxation. 69% is going to tax. So you're left with 30%. I want to give you a comparative example to France. France, you pay 60%, both direct and indirect. What do you get back? You get infrastructure. You get security. You call the police, they are there within 5-10 minutes. You get free education, free hospital quality care. You're going for heart surgery, it's like none else in the world. You get unemployment insurance if you're out of a job. And everybody wants to retire early because you get a very handsome pension. You can live your life on the beach. All right? And in fact, one of the big political battle is what is the retirement age, right? Because people want to retire at 55, right? And I think it was pushed at one point to 65 and it has caused mayhem. Okay? Now, this is the comparative nature. What do you get here? Dilapidated infrastructure. All right? You have no system that works. You get policemen who shoot you with money that you're giving them bullets for. Okay, you get oppression, you get lies. What services are you getting back in return? You don't have free education anymore. You're begging and queuing for bursaries as though it's their money, not yours. What is this? You are paying odious debt. 70% of what we contribute is to criminality. Paying debt that you don't owe, feeding some stomachs, right? Continuously, our slavery. What social contract do we have with the people, with the government? They broke it long time ago. But isitoshe. The amazing thing is the Supreme Court, in its wisdom, I say, to save William Samoei Ruto on the finance bill, gave us a very interesting conclusion. It says the revenue estimates, which are where our taxes are anchored, are not supposed to be in the appropriation bill. I mean, it's laughable. Completely laughable. So they've said our taxes are not part of the budget. Right? If you read PFM and you read it in conjunction with the Constitution, 37.9 is so clear. The appropriation bill are the estimates, both revenue and expenditure. They have said revenue does not have to be there, only expenditure. So they have literally told us that tax is not part of the budget. So if tax is not a part of the budget, why are we paying tax? Why are we paying tax?
Is that the only interpretation one can have for what the Supreme
Yes,
Court
there was
said?
nothing else to it. They were trying to interpret Article 221 in relation to the Appropriation Act. 221 says the revenue, the budget is going to be revenue and expenditure estimates together. Right? And that is carried on, right, in the PFM, what the Appropriation Act contains. And then they say here, because it has not been done, all this time, they found an excuse, contrary to their opinion in the year 2020, where they said it has to be together, that is the budget. They came up with an excuse to save William Ruto with his finance bill of 2023 rather, that revenue estimates do not have to be part of the appropriation bill. That is their ruling.
If I take your view, can I therefore then ask that is the Supreme Court not allowed to contradict itself?
No, the Supreme Court is supposed to interpret correctly the Constitution of Kenya. So they're not contradicting. They
Can we
cannot
say-
contradict the constitution.
Can we then say that when they interpreted in 2020 it was correct, and that in 2024 they are still correct?
So what influenced them?
I wonder. You tell me.
Yes.
What do you think influenced them?
I believe they were gotten to by the government of William Samoei Ruto. That is my belief.
And is the evidence?
Because how do you change? What they've actually done is ultra-vires to the Constitution of Kenya. Their ruling is null and void as we talk today. Right? And one day they shall account for it. They are not people who are going to be there forever. One day they shall account for it. And history will judge them very harshly, this Supreme Court. Very harshly. It is my prayer. This is not a Supreme Court we want to see adjudicating over any other election. They should be gone like yesterday. They do not represent us. This is why people get so annoyed about these systems. They no longer represent the people. They are going and interpreting for their own ends. So they have given us the out for not paying tax. They have told us that tax is not part of revenue, is not part of budget. So why are we paying?
So on the one
Why are
hand,
we feeding even those delinquents in the Supreme Court?
Jimmy,
Why are we feeding them?
Jimmy.
We must deny them this income. Our time to act is now. We must do a tax revolt.
what, based on the Supreme Court decision?
No. I said first and foremost the social contract has already been broken. Number two, the Supreme Court has already given us an out.
But you disagree with it.
No, what do you mean I disagree with it?
I just said you disagree with
It's
what the
ultra-vires to the Constitution. But they've given us an out. In terms of trying to save William Ruto, they've told us, don't pay tax. So we will not pay tax. And I urge Kenyans not to pay tax. Don't feed these monsters. The power is in your pocket. The power to remove William Ruto is in your pocket. To remove this delinquency is in your pocket. Stop paying tax. Get
there-
off the grid.
Does the Constitution give us this out?
It's out.
No,
yes.
my friend, what do you mean the Constitution?
Does
we
it?
mean the Constitution, Jimmy.
But I'm saying the Supreme Court has already given us the out. What else do we
Is
want?
the Supreme Court
And
interpretation
look at it this way.
superior to
Look-
this to the Constitution?
No, it isn't. It isn't. It isn't. But
So-
the Supreme Court also anchors, the Constitution also anchors the social contract.
Yes, it does.
We're going
Yes.
to the news, Jimmy. Stay here. City,
Yes, please.
the proverbs for this week are from the kingdom of
Lesotho.
Lesotho.
E-
Is it Lesotho, Lesotho, Lesotho?
What do you think?
Jimmy, what is it? That kingdom.
Lesotho.
Well, actually, it is Lesotho.
Okay.
Okay, since you asked me the question, okay, a person, one person from Kenya is called Kenyan.
Kenyan.
Okay, one person from Lesotho is called who?
Lesotho.
Okay, this is the problem of.
Dennis, what's your
Plead the fifth.
what's your guess?
I plead the fifth.
Take a guess, boy.
Take a guess, Chief.
What's that?
One person,
One person.
yes, from Lesotho. It's called
Lesotho.
All right. Thank you for guessing. One person is called Amosotho.
Amosotho.
Yes.
Yeah?
People are called Basotho, like Bakongo and Bakenya. Okay. The language is called Sesotho.
Lesotho.
Yes, that's the language.
I like that.
And the country, of course, you know, is
Leso.
okay. So now you know.
Aye, boss. The proverb?
The proverb from this delightful country: cattle are born with ears, horns grow later.
Cattle are born
They're
with
born.
ears.
The ears are born with the good. The growing is for the horns.
The horns grow later.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So Jimmy, leo tumesema kuje uongee ikutoke. Okay. Iseme ikutoke. You're saying there are two causes of action that you see that you'd like, people to rally on. One of them is direct, complete civil disobedience, stop paying taxes.
Why do you say civil disobedience?
Well,
Stopping to pay tax, surely.
You see, the government itself has caused disobedience to us. It's the cause. They have broken their social contract with us.
so two wrongs make a right.
Their fiscal social contract with us. And we have one very clear responsibility in our constitution. we must protect it and ensure that it is obeyed.
Ensure fidelity.
And one of the ways we do it is through civil action. Not disobedience. Civil action. Maandamano was civil actions. The tax revolution is civil action, not disobedience. CT challenged me about disobedience
Yes, I did.
to the law.
Yes, I did.
And I want to quote the law here from the Supreme Court. In their ruling, E031, E032, E033 of 2024, delivered on the 29th of October. This was on the Finance Bill 2023.
Yes.
They said, and I like to say that they overgrew their creature, the interpretation that was before them was Article 220, 221 A, B, and C, which requires that the budgets of the national and county governments shall contain estimates of revenue and expenditure, differentiating between recurrent and development expenditure, and B, proposing for financing any anticipated deficit for the period of which they apply. The spirit of the Constitution clearly demonstrates that tax revenue and other estimates must match the expenditure, and none can exist without the other, as the revenues finance the expenditure. All right? So the makers of the Constitution were fairly clear. We are looking for a balanced budget. In other words, what we spend should be covered by what we collect. And if there is any anticipation of any difference, that is our deficit, our shortfall, it must be stated and must show where it goes on the expenditure side because it is considered as revenue. Now, these provisions, if you go on further, right, are anchored very well in Article 221, 1. It goes on to 221.3, and it goes on to 221.4, which requires the National Assembly to consider the estimates of revenue and expenditure, all right, and present and table to the House. It is also clear that the National Assembly is required by the Constitution to discuss and review the estimates of expenditure, the budget required as in Article 1. It goes on, Article 2215, discussing and reviewing the estimates. It goes on, right, to be actualized in PFM, Public Finance Management Act of 2012, which says in 37.9, requires upon approval of the budget estimates are both revenue and expenditure, as per Article 221 of the Constitution. By the National Assembly, the Cabinet Secretary shall prepare and submit an appropriation bill of the approved estimates. The estimates are revenue and expenditure to the National Assembly. The appropriation bill, the Appropriation Act, is envisaged and is stated in PFM in line with the Constitution 221 to carry both revenue and expenditure. Now, the government, since 2014, has not been doing that. If you look at the budget for 2013, 2014, it was doing so. From 2014, it refused to do so. And this was a challenge in the finance bill. Why are the revenue estimates not in the appropriation bill? The Court of Appeal ruled that is correct. They should be they should be together, and nullified the finance bill of 2023. The Supreme Court in 2020 had given a concerted opinion on the same and said you have no appropriation bill without both revenue and expenditure estimates. And now, all of a sudden, in October, they say that revenue estimates do not have to be part of the appropriation bill. Voila, eureka moment for them. We wonder why. But the key thing is that they have misinterpreted the Constitution.
Which they have previously interpreted correctly.
Correctly. Now, and even the Court of Appeal had based their opinion in part on that Supreme Court ruling 2 years before. Now, it means then the tax revenue is not anchored in the appropriation estimates. Tax revenue does not form part of the budget, according to the Supreme Court. Does not. So why are we paying? We are paying an illegality. The government is today collecting tax by false pretenses. Article 313, according to the Supreme Court. Yes, according to this ruling.
That's a very
Article
generous interpretation, Jimmy.
A generous what?
Interpretation of that.
Why do you say generous?
Because if the argument here is on the structure of the budget, right, does it necessarily touch on the fact of funding of government? Revenue? So revenue estimates are not part, let's even go with that, are not necessarily part of this budget document.
Yes.
It doesn't mean that there is no revenue raising.
But how do you revenue raise if you're not raising for the budget?
Is that what they've said?
That's what the law says.
No, that's not
the law says you revenue raise. That was the basis of the challenge of the Finance 2023 bill.
Is that what the Supreme
Court said? The basis of the challenge of the finance bill, which is a revenue raising measure, was that it is not anchored in the appropriation bill revenue estimates. That was the basis of the challenge. This has been challenged for the last 1 year.
So your interpretation here
so
is
the
that
clarity is that you cannot, if you are not part of revenue raising appropriation bill, if you're not part of the revenue estimates, how are you revenue raising in the finance bill?
The question is, what are you part of then?
So are you?
No, you don't exist.
So your interpretation is that all the tax laws, therefore, are null and void.
What are tax laws? Are they not revenue raising?
Yeah.
So, for what?
So they're null and void.
For what? For what? For what?
To fund
what are you raising? Yes, to fund where? Where is that anchored? In law. It's all anchored in law.
Yeah.
Where is it anchored? Where is it anchored?
You can go back.
First and foremost, it is anchored in the budget.
I'm asking you. So your interpretation.
It is anchored in the budget, and it is anchored in the budget revenue estimates.
It's okay, Jimmy. I'm asking you. So your interpretation of the Supreme Court decision is that all tax laws are therefore invalid.
All tax revenue raising measures and laws are completely invalid.
That's what you're...
Absolutely.
Based off the interpretation.
Absolutely.
All right, so let's go into now seeing how to practically implement what your interpretation is.
Oh.
So you say that you, Jimi Wanjigi, are stopping to pay tax.
Yes.
You, Jimi Wanjigi. Have you stopped? Have you started?
I'm completely stopping.
Yeah.
Yes. I will not file any tax return.
Like you told us, very many indirect taxes.
I will not file any tax return.
There are very many indirect taxes that we pay.
Yeah.
How will you stop paying?
I will pay cash. And I'll convince the vendor to accept my cash, and I don't want a receipt.
For whatever cash you pay, there is the indirect tax embedded in it. Whether you're paying by card or by cash.
I am going to ask that there is no platform.
If you buy fuel today,
this is the civil action. The civil action is this. It's a concerted civil action. We are not going to give what is legally not bound for us to give. Number two, the government anyway has broken our social contract. So it is a point of civil disobedience.
So how do we do
it? If we mobilize, hold on. If we mobilize the thousands of us not to do so, what action can the government take?
That's what I'm asking. So
they can't.
Give the roadmap.
I've given a roadmap.
What do we...
I am asking...
When you go to buy bread...
very simply this.
When you go to buy bread today and it has 16% VAT and there's excise in it, or when you're buying airtime and there's excise in it, when you're transferring money, there's excise in it, or even either mobile money or from your bank and there's excise in it, how are you going to avoid that? How will you stop paying 16% VAT on fuel?
Well, there are many items that you cannot. I accept. There are many items that are structured that you cannot. But there are also very many items that you can. Today, civil disobedience is already happening. If you go around a lot of Kirinyaga Road, if you go down Grogan, you go down a lot of the main streets, even Biashara, people are asking you whether you want to pay tax or not, and are giving you a different form of payment. And that's what we want to encourage. People to get off the grid, get off your M-Pesa, get off your pay bills. Where you can, issue a receipt, you can throw that receipt book in the dustbin tomorrow. The more we are off the grid, the better. I'm asking those of us who are like-minded to say we are not going to file tax returns. What can you do when we don't file them? How many of us are you going to arrest? And arrest us with what? I am one. Charge me. I'll show you how the Supreme Court has told us we do not have to pay.
Jimmy, let me paint a picture.
All right? Let me be that case. Let me be that case that opens up the door. Mm-hmm. All right? That sets a precedence for others not to pay. Because it's clear. Civil disobedience begins somewhere. It begins with the one person that goes on the street and says, I am prepared, right, to be arrested for my rights. Yes, Dennis?
Jimi Wanjigi, we live in a country where a lot of Kenyans are unemployed, and part of the documents that they need clearance for them to get employment is clearance by the taxman. So if you're telling them not to file returns and they get an opportunity to get jobs, how do they go about it?
But how do they file returns when they've been unemployed?
But it is a requirement of the law.
No, but how do they file returns?
They do.
Do you understand how ridiculous it is? That's how ridiculous it is. No, but filing for who? You've been unemployed, you have no job. What tax returns are you filing? It's ridiculous. Come on, guys.
It's just
you are just being conditioned. It's the same way.
Actually, no.
Dennis, we talked about a system of oppression and exploitation and domination. Here you are again, right? Being made to be dominated and exploited.
But we're talking about the law.
This is the Mzungu who came out and said the hard tax you must pay in a rupee. And when you couldn't, right, forced you to slave labor. This is what's going on here.
Or took your livestock.
Okay, and took your lives.
Livestock.
We are tired. Or took your livestock, correct. Okay, this is enough. This is part of civil disobedience. Stop telling us to conform. We are not going to conform. You say we are not filing that return. That's what happens, Dennis. Right? So think out of the box. We say we are not going to file that return. We are not going to do what you're asking us to do. We are objecting to this nonsense. Right? Because it is part of conditioning us, dominating us, extracting from us.
Jimmy, you know where the disconnect is? This is something you have clearly given thought.
Yes.
Us, we're beginning to give it thought now.
Correct.
Okay?
Okay.
All right?
Agreed.
Yes. And we are thinking of, if I may use the word conditioning, of what it is we think will happen if we do not pay tax.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
Now, civil disobedience, I think, is actually permissible in our constitution. See, since we're taking liberties, if you think it isn't, then tell me. But this is my thought.
That's the interpretation.
That's my interpretation. Now, if what you are arguing, when you say don't pay taxes, it's omnious and it conjures up all manner of terrible things that will happen to me. I don't want to go that route. So let me look at it this way, that you're saying, if I pay taxes as currently prescribed, then what I'm doing is I am feeding a certain beast, which beast has been responsible for all the pain and aches that I've been experiencing. And by continuing to pay, I'm actually paying for my own discomfort.
Correct.
That's what you're saying.
That is what I'm saying. And on top of that, we have an out. But let me take you back to an example that you've given, that you are worried about outcomes.
Completely.
In relation to civil disobedience that you say is in our constitution.
It is.
Now, there was a time in this country, in the advent of the second liberation, that so-called civil disobedience was not allowed in our constitution.
Completely.
You could not assemble without a letter from the policeman or the chief. You could not, even as an MP, could not address a baraza without a letter from a chief. You couldn't meet in your house more than 5 people without a letter from your local police station, let alone have a rally. And people said at one point, I'm sorry, enough is enough.
Is more than
and
enough.
We are going to break that barrier. That is why we have the civil disobedience that you're talking about, that Ruto is now trying to claw back on, that you cannot assemble. Okay? We have that freedom because people took the step. Unlike a lot of our neighbors, they don't have that freedom in their constitutions because they've never taken the steps. We are so reformed. This is now the next phase. This is now, we are walking down what you call the path of our economic liberation. We've gone through our political. And economic liberation is our pocket. And we can refuse to feed this monster. The power is in our pocket. We can refuse to participate. That becomes our civil disobedience. And what are they going to do? How many thousands are you going to lock up? You don't even have the money to lock us up. You won't even have the fuel to fuel your vehicles to come and arrest us. You won't have your bullets to shoot us. So let us withdraw that money. Let us withdraw it from this monster. Okay? Until this monster accepts that it has failed and needs to change. And this opens up a whole new political direction for future generations. The power is with us. As envisaged in the Constitution, it is the people, not the government, not these so-called represented agents. It is us. We can say no. And I can assure you, that's all it takes. The one person. Tunisia, it took one person to go and burn themselves in the street. And it started what you call the Arab Spring. Kenya, we are already in revolution mode. Gen Z began it. And they began it so well, it's still there. It's not over. It's not over. This is now just contributing to the process. We withdraw any support to this monster by making sure we do not feed it from our pockets.
You know, that conversation of the odious debt was palatable to me. I liked it. And why I liked it, there's a reason why. Because the picture had been painted and the justification provided as to how it is. There are monies we are told we owe, and yet we actually don't owe. And that we don't owe them is relevant because we still pay for it. Okay? And in the absence of that payment, the argument then followed was whatever it is we collect in terms of revenue was actually more than adequate to just sort out our problems and we can go our merry way.
CT, I love this. I love this. I love you bring us to the issue. The issue is, what are we funding? 70% today of our taxes is going to that ODS debt. This time last year, debt was at about 10.5 trillion shillings. In the last financial year, we paid almost 1.6 trillion to that debt.
We paid.
We paid. 2023, 2024, we paid 1.6 trillion to that debt. All right? Remember, it was 10.5. Today, what do we owe? 10.8.
We paid 10.5.
No, 10.5 this time last year, December last year.
Is what we owed.
Was what we owed.
And we paid...
In that financial year, from June 2023 to June 2024,
yes,
we paid 1.6
trillion.
Mm-hmm.
So if we minus...
Yes.
You get to 9 point.
Okay. Dennis, you get what?
9 point something trillion.
Right. Today, central bank figures are showing that we owe 10.8.
Okay.
Okay. And this year, we are paying 1.855 trillion to it. 1.855
So we moved from 1.6, we're now paying
1.8 this financial year.
Yes.
Okay. And yes, next year is going to 2.1. Okay. Right? The year after that, 2.2. And we can take this trajectory all the way to 2034. And nobody can tell you where this money went. Nobody.
But we're paying.
But we are paying.
So where are we paying it to?
And when I gave you the summary last time, I think that's what you're going on very well. That if you look at the last 10 years, 2013 July to 2023,
yes,
you had what were called the primary accounts. That's what you're remembering.
Yes, yes.
And the primary accounts show this. What was our expenditure? What was our tax return? Our expenditure, including all the development expenditure stated, which was about 6 trillion in 10 years. Our counties, our salaries, our pensions, our operations were 14.6 trillion. Right? Without debt payments, remove debt payments. And then you look at our income from tax revenue, 13.3
trillion.
So we had a deficit
of just one EV.
One EV.
Yes.
But we went and borrowed 7.7.
And
6.4 trillion above what we needed.
And yet the shortfall
was only one.
But we went and borrowed another 7 trillion.
Yes. And in that time, take note, in that time, we have paid 7 trillion.
We have already paid 7 trillion.
Yes, in loan repayments.
Right.
All right. Remember, we only had a shortfall of 1.
Yes.
We paid 7 trillion by June 2023.
But what we owe
was we only needed 1.4.
All right.
Right? But we borrowed 7.7.
And we've paid 7.
And in that period of 10 years, we paid 7. Okay. This thing is never ending. So why are we feeding it? Because if you can show me what all these trillions have done in this country for us, I'll accept. Now, to show you the sadness of it is this. Very simply. You can see the issues we're having even in schools, grade 9 and so on. Okay? This year, we are paying 1.855 trillion in debt. We don't know what it is for. We don't know. What it's about.
We've actually been told.
Okay? 1.855 trillion. 70%, okay,
Yes.
of our estimated revenue. And those revenues, by the way, are really coming down. Okay? They're really coming down. The estimates are really short, I think, today over 40 billion, just in the last 4 months. Now, you imagine to fund education in this country as it is today. You have 10 million kids in primary school, right? Give them 4,000 shillings per year. That funds everything. That's 40 billion. It funds everything. It funds the salaries of teachers, funds everything. Take another 4 in high school. 4 million, because that's the drop-off rate is about 6 million. 4 million in high school. Give them 20,000. That is 80 billion. 80 plus 40, 120. And then go to university, you have 250,000. 250,000, the average plan, let's say, is about 300,000. They normally say a government a third, or rather a loan a third, a parent a third, and you can say government a third. Those 3 portions. So let's say you are paying 100,000 per student. That's another 25B. All right? So 145B funds our entire education system as it stands today with the numbers per year.
And yet,
And a parent will only take out money at university. At university. You have no teacher strikes, you'll have nothing. A parent maybe will only buy uniform, at best, at most, rather. Okay? Right? 145B. We are spending 1.9 almost trillion on debt we don't know what it's about. Do you see the tragedy? So really, why are we feeding this monster?
you see why I like that conversation? It's actually very far removed from me. Taxes is here.
It's here.
Yes. And if I don't pay taxes, the consequences are also just here.
Here,
immediately.
yes.
What are your consequences?
You know, the indirect taxes that you're saying that may be difficult to implement. The direct taxes may be also difficult to implement because the direct taxes, unless you, for example, you're an employer, are you saying that you're not deducting payee and SHIF and what's the other one, SSF and housing from
Affordable
your
housing.
employers to remit to the government? Jimi Wanjigi is our guest today. So you said there were 2 causes of action. We come back to the tax one. What's the second one?
I don't know why you want to drive me when you've not finished Katakodi.
Yeah?
Katakodi is imperative. But anyway,
It
we'll go
is.
to the next one.
Yes.
The next one is simply this. We must understand that the power the Constitution gave us is supreme. Article 1 enables us to get back power from our donated agents. One of William Ruto's biggest fears is forming the Electoral Commission. IEBC is going to be his biggest monster. And I'll tell you why. Not because there are many, maybe a couple of MPs who want to quit his party and go into other parties. But it's because he has knowledge of a referendum that we intend to take. That referendum is a people's initiative to amend the Constitution for an early election. We are certain that we will get the requisite numbers from the people to have a popular initiative, a people's initiative, to have a referendum that, in a sense, cuts short the term of William Samoei Ruto and his deputy. And we intend to do so next year. Let him form that IEBC, ataona chemte makuni.
Explain that.
It's very simply this.
So a constitutional
Referendum.
a referendum to amend the constitution to call for an early election.
Yes. to cut short.
And this thing happens in 2025, so the early election will be in 2026.
No, why? Why not in 2025? The intention of that amendment, which is before the court, is that within 14 days of passing that, he should vacate office. And if he vacates office, the speaker holds on to for 60 days. We must have an election. So why do you say 2026?
So what is the amendment here? Is it a constitutional amendment?
Yes,
to change
it's a
the
constitutional
date of the election,
amendment to amend
it
the term of the current holder. Current holder of the office. We are not trying to say we want to amend it in totality. It's to amend for the current holder of office.
So to impeach the president.
The president.
Yes. Outside of parliament. Because the impeachment process is a parliamentary process, and we've seen parliament is already eaten up by him. So we are going by the popular initiative, wananchi to decide. Wananchi to decide. And judging by the mood we can feel in the country, we are certain that that is going to be a fantastic campaign. A fantastic campaign.
I am impressed by the pursuit of processes of this nature in accordance with the law. But there's a question that always lingers whenever one has discussions such as this one. What next? Because you want to say, let President Ruto be impeached. I guess he opened that door with the impeachment of Gachagua. Because the requirements for impeaching your deputy is the same as the requirements for impeaching you. That door was opened, I understand. And then we have an election. And then how do we know that we are going to find ourselves in a position where the problems that we've discussed in detail and then some, we will actually see the beginning of them being resolved? How?
CT,
Yes.
stop being a pessimist.
This is not pessimism.
This is what is called a growth point. Let me assure you, the minute there is a head of state that knows, you don't even have 5 years. This rug can be pulled under your feet any day. Your whole attitude when you sit there is very different. Number two.
I do agree with that point. Yes.
The question of that contest, that election, will be exactly what you're asking. We actually want fundamental change. Fundamental, not cosmetic. Not cosmetic. And it is the messenger of the fundamental change that will win that election. I can assure you of that.
Me, I'm doubtful.
And if not that election, the next one.
I'm doubtful because the people electing these leaders whom we propose are the same Kenyans who elected the current president.
And the same Kenyans who came out during the Gen Z riots.
Yes.
And I can assure you, those ones have a very different barometer.
They
to
do.
the ones that elected William Samoei Ruto in 2022. You must remember, and let's put those votes into context. The largest voter was 8 million that did not participate.
Yes. Was it one particular age set or was it a mixed bag?
It was mostly younger people who did not participate. You also had another 4 million that were eligible that did not go and take votes.
Yes.
So you have a very large constituency, estimated at roughly 70%. That is a whole new breed of voters in terms of their thinking.
So we are saying
their thinking
yes.
is based on what we saw during the Gen Z. They understand the economic revolution. They understand not only the economic revolution, but there's some fundamental things that need to change here. They are not interested in the old politics. They're not. They are not interested in the old politics of chieftains and tribal leaders and demagogues. They are not. They are not even interested in the old political class. They are not. That does not represent their thinking or their minds. And in fact, the old political class are unable to talk to them about what their true ideals are. They're not there. So we are evolving so fast, so fast, that you cannot believe it. I say this with a lot of confidence because even the advent of multi-party democracy had those doubting Thomases. In fact, I think it was more you kept saying, all we're going to do is get tribal cocoons. Yes, we did. But 70% always voted against him. And that is why he eventually had to leave. 10 years later than he should have, but it is because of that. Even here, have that hope, CT, that this will be such a big step in the next order, because it's new politics. And this order changed. That's why I said the fulcrum of our Kenyan politics changed with Gen Z. With the economic revolution that came out in very clear mandamano, May, June this year, the fulcrum of our politics has changed.
Jimmy, it's not that I'm doubtful. It's just that I've lived long. And
CT.
Yes,
Dennis disagrees.
And you've grown horns.
And you have horns.
Yes. Because
it's too much in a box.
Yes, you see, my lived experience with these matters has been this. This freedom we now enjoy is taken for granted because it's our daily staple. What is forgotten is that those who championed it, my friend, were such outliers. They were considered to be so far gone, and whatever they were talking about was even further gone. In fact, it was stratospheric. But here we are today. So what you're saying is not that it is not possible. I am merely pointing to the reality that even with those changes, some of the people who spearheaded those changes metamorphosized into fossils before our very eyes. They became the very people who, in their later years, were fighting the very things they fought for.
Or they shed their they shed their sheepskin.
I think we didn't quite understand the period. It was political liberation.
Okay.
All right? And I can tell you, even those that you're saying were boxed into certain stratospheres and were seeing very far, that became now reticent to those views. Please, they have never supported the breaking of our freedom. Our political gains? No. They have never.
So
they may not, they have become conformists. Because for them, many of them, this is a new era. It's a new revolution. So their time is up. They have done their job. We are able to speak here. Long time ago, would have been shut down long time ago. I would have been arrested before I walked into here.
You wouldn't have left your house.
Correct.
Yes.
Right. So we have those freedoms. Nobody's clawing back on that. William Ruto can't. He's trying. He's got a criminal police unit here. Right? That is, and one day they'll pay for it. These guys are joking. You know, they think that it won't come back to them. It our Rudia 100 million times. Okay?
100 million.
Yes, 100 million times. In other words, scores of generations of their lives. But let me tell you, they do not understand this period we're in. That's why you feel that way.
No.
They do not understand the economic revolution. It's not theirs. It's not theirs.
Jimmy,
I think it's too much for us to ask them, right, to be any different.
Jimmy, it's not a question of not understanding the economic revolution. It's understanding human nature. This really is the point at which I'm speaking from. That everything you say is aspirational and it is good. And I actually think it is wonderful, personally. But knowing human nature as I do, the wolf at the door response and reaction is very different from when the wolf has been not killed, chased away. The urgency and the emergency fades. It goes away. And the likelihood of reverting back to factory settings is usually very high.
CT, the conditioning of the people you're talking about is the same conditioning that started 100 years ago plus. The colonial era input. All they did was be replaced from a white man to a black man. They don't know any other conditioning.
Jimmy,
that is not their. It's not their era.
Jimmy, it's a leap.
Their era, I'm telling you, they cannot leap. They cannot.
No, I'm telling you,
this is why you get disappointed.
What we're talking about is a leap because
they cannot. By the way, they cannot.
If Jimmy, we can't speak truth to power to my MCA.
By the way, they cannot.
Just a local boy.
They have grown how? Not on that template. Any new template eradicates them. A new formula eradicates them, so they don't want it. They stick to what they know.
Any new template is form, Jimmy. It's not necessarily substance. It can grow into substance. And that's what one prays for, but it is form. I am throwing a cautionary note.
CT.
Because cautionary.
CT, let me give you a difference. Today, a lot of those leaders do not want to hear CT is a multi-billionaire in dollars, because you become a threat to their existence in power, because they believe money gets them power. I'm just giving an example.
Jimmy, why are you giving,
I'm just giving
false information?
No, it's not false information. They do not want to hear that you have become a billionaire, a dollar billionaire.
Yes.
Right? And you are a friend of an opposition person such as Jimmy.
Shida.
Oh, utafungwa. Utafungwa. Okay? Whereas the models that are now coming are literally about supply side economics, which means that you become the drivers of an economy, not the government. You become the billionaires. And in fact, you can take political direction.
And the government becomes a facilitator.
And, yes, opens up the doors for you. You become that dollar billionaire, right? And you're allowed to take a position. You're a conservative or you're liberal. Choose your side. You're for more taxes or less taxes. Choose your side. You're for the tax against the rich and the poor not to pay less tax. Choose your side. Okay? This is what is coming. That is not politics they know. That is not an economic model they know.
They know they don't want to know.
It doesn't suit them.
Yes.
Yes, because this is not what they are conditioned. And it will not keep them in power. So they resist.
Strange
right?
though.
And they give you lip service.
Strange though, because understanding is what would keep them in power.
Oh, they can't understand this. They can't.
They can't.
It's too heavy.
You see that? No.
Look at any of them.
Yes.
Any of them. Look at the communities that they represent. Who have they built? In terms of the billionaires I'm talking about. In fact, they don't allow it. They kill them. They finish them. Any that come up, they finish them. That's not a template they like. Even competition within their own community.
And we are saying that this is something
because we have branded them as tribal chieftains.
So this is something we've had just from the dawn of independence.
Yes. It's the same colonial strategy.
And you're saying that now we're about to break away from this.
Yes, we have to. We have to. And we have a young population that is huge in terms of voting that are not interested in it. It doesn't work for them. It doesn't work for their future.
No,
and they're clamoring out of major political pain. So what happens? This is why I say it's revolutionary method. No, don't shake your head, CT. This is called revolutionary. We are in a revolution. Earlier this year, when we were talking about revolution, CT, how many doubting Thomases were there? Very many.
Yes.
Who could not see it? As far as revolution, even demonstrations in Nairobi were concerned, it was Raila's Preserve, for example. Right? What happened? Nobody has ever seen what we saw. And I've seen demonstrations here since 1992. I've never seen this. It's something that's never seen in this country.
The planet also
and I can assure you, it is not over. This is a moment of change. All the things that you think are cobwebs, are issues, are going to dissipate.
We will be
This is where we are.
We will be watching.
And we'll be here.
We'll be participating.
Yes.
In commentary.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.